Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to this. Shall I go? Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this coordinators workshop on Python, on learning Python. Um, so, first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this. I understand we've not had a lot of notice. It's barely been a month since the Scilab workshop when we announced this. So I thank you all for your participation. We've had excellent registrations. About 180 centers seem to have registered. So we're very excited to start this initiative of teaching Python to a large number of teachers across the country. So before we begin, we had shared a video with all of you about why we should use Python. And this is a video that's been recorded earlier. The idea is to give you some motivation as to why Python is actually useful today for a scientist or an engineer. I hope many of you have seen this. I hope most of you have seen this before you came here. Okay. So can I have at least some response from your side about whether you have actually seen that video or not? So if you can respond either on the chat or let us know if you have seen the video. That would be. So the question is, have you seen the video that was circulated? The video, it's about an 8-minute video. Have you seen this video that introduces you to why we should be using Python? This was circulated to all the coordinators. It's a short video. So if you have,
what was the topic?
It is on why we should be using Python, or motivation for Python. Yeah.
So there is a poll started. Just answer the poll.
Oh, excellent. So it looks like a large number of you have seen this. So we are getting the results live. There are maybe about 10 of you who have not seen it. About 60 to 70 people have seen this this video. That's very good. So thank you. So in case you haven't seen this video, it would be nice if you could, first thing you could do is see that video, maybe right after this initial introductory session. The reason I'm mentioning this is, just a second. The reason I'm mentioning this is I'm going to have a small discussion here about why Python, and I don't want to repeat the same things that I've said before. So I'll just recap whatever we had discussed in that video. So hopefully those of you who haven't seen the video will go back and take a look at it. So the big question we are asking here is, why should we be using Python? So I am Prabhu Ramachandran. I am from the Department of Aerospace Engineering, and I am one of the PIs for the FOSSEE project. And as part of this project, we've basically been trying to spread the adoption of free and open source software. Many of you must have already interacted with Professor Kannan, who is also a co-PI of this FOSSEE project. I lead the Python group in FOSSEE, and we help promote the use of Python. So before we actually get into the details of this workshop, let's just have a quick recap of why we should be using Python, why it's important. And I'll try and show you some quick live demo just to show you, some nice features about this programming language. So as I said before, this is part of the FOSSEE project. So it's free, libre, open software for education is what this project's about. You can check out this website, fossee.in, which will tell you more about the FOSSEE project and our various sub-projects. The goals of this project are basically to use to increase the use of FOSS in education and to minimize the use of commercial software. And this project happens to be funded by the MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource Development, through their NME ICT program. So I'm just going to quickly recap what the video discussed, which is the most important feature is that as engineers and scientists and even computer scientists nowadays, you need a toolkit to be able to do a diverse set of tasks. And very often these are not just simple tasks of just making a plot or reading some data. There's a lot of things that one needs to do as a scientist. And once you start using the computer more and more efficiently and effectively, you will find that you'll need to do more and more things with it. You'd want to automate things and things like that. So we had looked at these following things, which is like you want to do numeric computing, you may want to do symbolic computation, and then you may want to explore and visualize data. And this is something that's extremely common nowadays given the prevalence of data analysis and machine learning and things like that. So exploration and visualization of data is extremely important, and this is something where you need an interactive environment. Now on top of this, nowadays we have a lot of data and a lot of information, and sometimes computations can also be fairly intense, in which case you actually need to use high performance. In fact, my own research involves high performance simulations, high performance computing used for computer simulations. So we need to be able to do high performance. We may also need to do parallel computing. And in addition, you may not want to build a user interface. You may want to build a website and things like that. And nowadays, there's also a great deal of interest in data analysis, statistical data analysis. Then there's also machine learning, which has become extremely popular. And above this, there are other general tasks, things like routine system administration tasks, cleaning up some data, doing small bits and pieces of tasks, or writing a little command line utility. All of these are simple things that you may want to be able to do with a given programming language. So why is Python relevant given all of these requirements? The first important thing that we looked at was that it's actually very easy to read and learn. So you will find by the end of this workshop that you can learn the basics of Python very quickly. The second important feature is that it has a powerful interactive interpreter, which is kind of like what you may have seen in Scilab or MATLAB. In fact, these interfaces are motivated or inspired by these popular existing interfaces. And these are extremely important for a practicing scientist, because as soon as you get some data, you generate some data, you are able to immediately start looking at it and exploring this. Now, unlike many specialized languages which are only used for certain tasks, Python is a general purpose programming language, which means you can write little scripts to do small analysis, and if you want to scale it up, you can actually write full-fledged applications with Python, and that's a very important feature. The programming language itself is highly modular, which means you can kind of build your tool using modular components of programming, which makes it easier to maintain code. It's also a very high-level programming language. It means with a very few lines of code, you can accomplish a lot, unlike low-level programming languages like Fortran and C or C++. Finally, one of the nice features of Python is the fact that it doesn't force any particular programming paradigm on you. So you can do it either as a procedural or an object-oriented or a functional style. All of these are supported by Python, and it doesn't kind of enforce any of these on you, which makes it very nice. Now, perhaps more important than these is the fact that Python has an enormous number of libraries. So Python has an extensive number of libraries, and this is really the biggest strength of Python. Pretty much anything you can think about can be done with Python. And this facilitates rapid application development. Since you want to develop something very quickly from an idea to an actual product or something that's useful for you, even if it's not a product, you can do so very quickly, and that's very, very important. In addition, it lets you interface to existing legacy code which is written in a lower level programming language. And over and above all of this, it's cross-platform, which means it runs on all the popular platforms, which is Linux, Windows, Mac, some phones also it runs. And most important of all, it's open source. It's distributed under a very liberal open source license, which means you can use it for commercial or academic or whatever usage that you want, and the source code is also made available. So this is an extremely important feature. So what our argument is as to why you should learn Python is that there are these diverse needs, and there's this one programming language that you learn, you can achieve all of these tasks very easily. So it's really worthwhile learning this programming language. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some quick demos of just a small bit of code that does something interesting so that you're able to see the power of what you can achieve with Python. So the first thing I'm going to look at is there's this very new platform or an environment for doing interactive computing called Jupyter. You can check it out in your leisure later on. Jupyter, that's what you see here. What this lets you do is it lets you create these things called notebooks. So kind of like you may have seen this in Mathematica or other tools. And these notebooks can be hosted online, which means you can actually interact and use these kind of notebooks online as well as on your own computers. And basically it lets you put together equations and text. I know this font is small, but the intent is just to show you that there is mathematics here. This is just a screenshot over here. You can also put code here, like this is a code cell, and that's Python code. It can be other code as well, but it also supports other languages like R and Julia and things like that. But we are only going to focus on the Python aspects. And it lets you embed images that are produced as a result of this code in the same notebook. Now this is very powerful, and this is very commonly used in the machine learning and data science world. A lot of people make use of Jupyter notebooks in order to share their research and also explain how things are done in this. So this is again a kind of platform or an environment, and the interesting thing is that this environment itself is implemented in Python, and this kind of shows you how powerful this language is. So not only can you build tools and do your own research, you can build tools for other researchers that are general purpose and are modern, that you can even put up on and make available on a website, and make all of those available through the same programming language, which is quite a big advertisement for the capabilities of Python. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a small quick demo using a Jupyter notebook, and it turns out that this presentation that I'm making over here is also a Jupyter notebook. So you can see that it's a fairly powerful environment for us to do things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a little bit of sound and plot the spectrogram live. So let's try this. So here's a code cell here that you see. You don't have to focus on the code or type this out or any of this. I'm just showing this as a demo. There are like 3 or 4 lines here which just set up the imports. I'm going to run this. And now I'm going to record this. So I've basically imported a module called sound device. I'm just going to say record 2 seconds of this at 4400 frequency. I love Python. Okay, well, I'm going to record it again because I love Python. So that's the sound I recorded. And now I'm going to immediately take this data. So this data is given to us in the form of actually a NumPy array, which you're going to learn about today. And then I'm going to just make a quick plot of a spectrogram of this, and you can see that's the spectrogram plot that's made available. And that's what I spoke. That's the actual audio signal on the left, and that's the spectrogram of that signal on the right. So as you can see, this is like very easy to do. And let me play it back just to see what. Sorry. No. I love Python. All right. I don't know if you heard that, but it actually played back. And you also noticed one thing. I'd made a typographical error in this code here. I changed that live. So which means this is a slide that I'm showing you, but I'm also executing code live on this slide. And this is kind of the power of what you can do with something like Python. So it's very easy to write code, put it together, and actually share it with other people using something like Python. Now, I'll just wrap up with a few more comments about why Python is powerful, especially in today's world where data analysis is so important, is that there are many useful data analysis libraries in Python. So we'll be looking at a few of these like NumPy and Matplotlib, but NumPy and Matplotlib are kind of the backbone of a lot of this data analysis toolset. There's also a library called Pandas. There's another library called SciPy, which I spoke about in the video that's been shared, and there's Jupyter itself. In addition, there are like statistical analysis tools like stats models and PyMC3 or PyMC4, which allow you to do Bayesian data analysis as well. So this basically gives you an ecosystem of tools that you can use for a lot of modern data analysis. And I've just touched a few. There are a lot more that you can actually use. Now what's probably more exciting and interesting for a lot of people is the fact that there's a lot of machine learning libraries that are also available in Python. And a lot of the really top-notch libraries in the world actually have first-class Python interfaces for them, which means Python is actually one of the de facto languages you would go to if you want to do any machine learning today, which means it makes it a good choice to pick up this language. So for example, you must have all have heard of scikit-learn or TensorFlow from Google, or Keras or PyTorch. All of these are again Python-based libraries, or you can use these libraries from Python, and they're designed to be well used from Python. So what we're going to do in this workshop is basically we're going to introduce you to Python, NumPy and Matplotlib, and these are kind of the basic set of tools with which you can use the rest of the tools that I've been talking about. And these are kind of fundamental building blocks that you need to know before you get involved in Python. And the way we'll be doing this is you'll be self-learning this material using spoken tutorials. We'll be giving you support during the workshop online. There'll be our Python FOSSEE team will actually be monitoring the forums. And if you have any chat questions, we'll have a few interactive sessions. We don't have time for many interactive sessions. We'll definitely have one at 5 in the evening where you have any general questions, we'll be happy to answer them. But we'll basically, primary mode of helping you will probably be through the forums where you're going to ask questions. Nancy will give us an introduction about how this method works. So before I hand it over to her, it's important that you understand that the tools that we're going to learn today and over the rest of the course are essentially going to be fundamentally important for you when you're learning Python. So we're going to teach you basics of NumPy and Matplotlib, and we're not going to teach it to you in a fashion where we are teaching you just the syntax. What we're actually going to do is get you completely immersed by actually creating plots, creating NumPy arrays early on, and then we'll start introducing the Python language, not quite formally, but in conjunction with whatever you have learned. So what this does is it actually gives you exposure to how you can use Python rather than just how you can kind of speak the language. It's like giving you a good a good novel or watching a nice movie rather than just telling you what the grammar of the language is. It's always a lot more fun to teach that way. So we hope that you enjoy learning this material. We're very excited to have you on board with us, and I'll now hand it over to Nancy, who's in charge of the spoken tutorial content creation. She will be talking to you about how to actually effectively use this spoken tutorial methodology, how best to use these resources, and also how to use today's session in order to get help and other things like that. So she'll give you a complete introduction on this. I will be back again answering questions whenever you may have them, and I will again see you this evening and probably this afternoon as well. So thank you once again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this workshop.